All right, so Mike Tomlin, NFL coach, came out saying that there should be more black head coaches. Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman are going to give their take on it, and of course, I'm going to chime in.
To the NFL we go. Minorities represent 69% of NFL players and 35% of assistant coaches, but yet only 3 head coaches are black men. Steelers coach Mike Tomlin, Dolphins coach Brian Flores, and recently hired Texans coach David Culley. Mike Tomlin expounded on this grave reality, telling the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, quote, "The optimist in me says things will get better, but there's been no evidence in the recent cycles to back that up. Without evidence, all we have is hope. We just..."
So if there's no evidence, you can't do anything. It is what it is. Or, actually, you can do something about it. Form your own league. You form your own league. It won't happen. I know it's not going to happen. If you form your own league, have the 70% of black players, I don't even say 70, let's say 55% of the black players come over as the league starts up. Of course, they're going to have to get a pay. Their pay is going to get cut low or lower. But I guarantee you it's going to blow up bigger than the NFL because we have all the athletes, right? Just something to think about.
Haven't been able to move the needle. And he added that Bieniemy has yet to matriculate to the next level, that's a real head
See to say matriculate? That's a whole new vocab word right there, Molly. I like it. If it is a word.
scratcher to him. Obviously, we know how successful Bieniemy has been. Stephen A., do you think star players, so we've heard from coaches, do you think star players need to be more vocal about the lack of black head coaches in the NFL?
Why would a star player be vocal about the lack of black head coaches? I'm assuming they're a star if they're winning. They'd be winning, right? I mean, you'd want a good coach. You wouldn't want a coach just because they're black. If we're being honest.
Yes, it should have been the case. And I'm not going to call out names or whatever because I don't know, the folks who may have done so or those who are doing it behind the scenes, more power to them. But when you talk about giving a voice to the voiceless, which is something that has been...
There's no such thing as voiceless. Anyone, literally anyone with a phone can go on social media. I don't want to hear it. You got stupid people on the internet talking about stupid things all day because they choose to. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear about how people are voiceless. That's cap.
Popularized throughout American history when it comes to discrimination or racist practices. The fact of the matter is that...
Okay, so racist practice. Make your own league. You don't have to worry about them anymore. See how easy that is?
Being silent or just operating behind the scenes, although that can be productive, you have to speak out at some point. At least somebody does. And the reality is that when it comes to black coaches in the NFL as well as in the National Basketball Association, they're few and far between. Avery Bradley and Kyrie Irving are guys that I'd like to give credit to in the off season before bubble play because they were trying to bring attention to the paucity of black coaches in the National Basketball Association because the numbers were dwindling before our very eyes and we didn't hear anything.
Of course y'all didn't hear anything. You and Shannon Sharp went off, oh man, what Kyrie talking about, man? What Kyrie talking about? It's just sad, man. Hey, and Stephen A. failed to mention that Kyrie literally said, let's form our own league. None of y'all listen to him. Not near one of y'all listen to him. Hey, it is what it is.
Always been the case.
Alright, we got a fresh and so clean ad right here. Let's get back to the video.
National Football League. As of right now, the year is 2021. Excuse me. There are 3 black head coaches. 3. That's it. Mike Tomlin, Brian Flores in Miami, and of course David Culley, who's the new head coach for the Houston Texans, who's been in the league for 27 years before he got a head coaching job. Robert Saleh for the Jets. He came over as a defense coordinator from the San Francisco 49ers to get the head coaching job. Born in Michigan, raised of Lebanese descent, Lebanese parents, what have you. Not African.
This is off topic, but when you see stuff like minority, that's programming to make you think you're lower than someone else is. Don't ever think you're a minority just because of the color of your skin.
American, but nevertheless it's a minority hire. Of course, the previous year, Ron Rivera, well respected and recognized, got hired in the nation's capital by the Washington football team, but he was the only minority hire the year before that. The league is 70% black. It's a multi-billion-dollar establishment. They're talking about how this league could generate in excess of $25 billion a year, at least before the pandemic. That's what they were talking. And yet, considering how popular this league is, nothing has happened. And
okay, Stephen A., nothing has happened. Now here's what thinking people do. They said, okay, so nothing's happened. What can we do about this? You know what? With that money that we're generating, let's go make our own league. Screw them. But no. Y'all don't have the brain capacity to think on that level, apparently. Or, here's the other thing. It's too hard. It's too hard translates to, nah, I just I'm chilling. That's pretty much what it means.
No player says anything about it. The millions upon millions of dollars that they're making, the way they're set and their generations are set, somehow, some way, nobody has the courage to open their damn mouths and speak out about it. If you remember, Max, I brought this up when it.
Okay, so at the beginning of the video, it said there was no evidence. If there's no evidence, they can't do anything about it, but go their own way. People gotta start using their heads, man.
Came to even Colin Kaepernick. When Colin Kaepernick took a knee, okay, everybody was in.
How this go to Colin Kaepernick? That's what we're talking about. Everything's race this, race that, slavery this, slavery that. And by the way, you shouldn't be taking a knee. You shouldn't be taking a knee to anything unless it's something you believe in. But if you want to take a knee to the flag, be my guest, but that's showing subservience to it, in my humble opinion.
Uproar coming to his defense because he had been marginalized, because he had been essentially blackballed. Well, guess what? I got a slew of.
Guess what, Stephen A.? If Colin Kaepernick was as good as Tom Brady, he wouldn't have gotten kicked out the league. I guarantee you. I mean, really, if we're being honest, he really didn't even get him. He didn't even get kicked out. He got himself out the league. If he's good enough, he can do and say whatever he wants. Look at LeBron. LeBron's the best player on the planet. He gets to do and say whatever he wants. Gets to be as woke as he wants. They're not gonna get rid of him if he's bringing in that much revenue.
Of black coaches that could say this has been happening to them for decades, but no player said anything. And my last point, Max, Mike Tomlin has been in the National Football League for 14 years as a head coach. His record is 145, 78, and 1. He's won 65% of his games. Max Kellerman, are you aware of any of his assistants who've been hired?
Good point.
But Sean Payton got a tree. And Andy Reid got a tree, and Sean, and you know, I mean, the list goes on and on.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I got no clue. I got no clue. This type of stuff really doesn't matter to me. Like, I think you should just focus. I think you should just focus on what he's doing as a head coach. I don't know any other of his assistants, so. I mean, if those assistants, coaches, I'm assuming Stephen A. is talking about are white, so be it. So, white person runs the league. If you got a problem with it, quit, make your own league. It's that simple.
I mean, Sean McVay, they got trees. They got proteges. They got folks sprinkled throughout the league getting jobs. Zach Taylor, no disrespect, wish him nothing but the best assistant.
That's the corporate world, though, Stephen A. That's how it is. If you got a problem with it, leave. You can't just sit there and a spot you know that's beneath you and complain about it all day. What true people do, or the top people do, they leave, start their own thing if it hasn't been started yet. Or they get with a good group of people that lets them or that elevates them to another level to where that group of people starts their own thing. Or they join someone that started their own thing. Where they have beliefs that collide with each other or come together with each other.
Eddie, he got a job there. Okay, where he come from? All I'm just saying is you just look at it and it's like the unfairness is so flagrant. It's disgusting.
Stephen A. That's expected. We're not at the top. It's expected. It is what it is. Do something about it.
And black players should be speaking up. Yes, long time ago.
Well,
And on another thing, I'd expect a white person to treat himself or to treat his people better than he would a so-called black person. I mean, it's not that hard. It's like you have a son and then some random kid's son, some other parent's son. You're gonna treat your son better than you're gonna treat the random person's son because you don't know him like that. It's that simple.
I agree. I think players, black and white, should be taking the lead here. As
Of course, you believe that, Max Kellerman. Why should a white person do it? What does a white person get out of it? Just saying.
LeBron James and Chris Paul and others have done in the NBA. Let's keep in mind what we're dealing with in the NFL, though, Stephen A. Colin Kaepernick, and I mentioned this years ago while it was going on. Remember we did the show in LA with Snoop and Magic? Colin Kaepernick was kneeling broadly. I mean, narrowly, it's injustice in terms of law enforcement interactions with communities of.
He did it for attention. I don't care what anyone says. He still hasn't done anything about it. Besides, we're spreading awareness. Eventually, you're going to have to put a plan together and do something about it.
But broadly, it's about systemic racism, right? And he hasn't had a job since then. He's been drummed out of the league unjustly.
You hear the way Max Kellerman is talking? He hasn't had a job since then. Boo-hoo. Oh my gosh. Who cares? Please tell me who cares. What is he doing to get back? Because he cost himself the money. He could have either held his police to himself and keep the money, or he could leave. He's clearly not a Tom Brady. Guarantee you, if there was a black Tom Brady, he'd still be in the NFL for kneeling. I guarantee you. Well, Colin Kaepernick isn't that good, so he can't do the same things LeBron James can do in the NBA.
Anything to do with his play, right? So that's what the.
Gotta press this open and add again.
NFL does if you make too much noise about that issue. Now, you might argue, well, the way Kaepernick went about it, he touched the third rail, at least in terms of the NFL and their business, and there are ways of doing it without burning everything down. We could argue about that, but okay, let's say I concede that point. Yes.
Yeah, we could argue about that, but that's going to end up being a circular argument. I can see it now. Man, you just don't like black people. I can see it now.
Players should take the lead, but the power structure is completely imbalanced. I mean, the reason, I think primarily that we see this, is there's virtually no minority ownership in the NFL.
Ding, 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 ding. Plus a billion points, Max Kellerman. So what do? Leave. The NFL can't run without its players. You take 50% of the black players, start their own league, get the smartest black people to make the league, to be the owners. Boom, you just put the NFL out of business. But people aren't going to do that. It is what it is.
That because the NFL is systematically kind of excluding or rejecting the attempts of minorities to own teams? Or is that because of our country's original sin? You know, you really want it. There's enormous economic inequity.
I'm tired of the slavery narrative, man. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it, man.
In this country based on the fact that black people were once slaves. And not only
they were once slaves. There it is. I know. But like, you know what's funny? The word slave, for those that don't know, comes from the word Slav, which comes from Slavic people. I'm gonna assume y'all know who the Slavic people were. I'll just put it like that, because they weren't black people. I'll say that much.
there never been reparations made, but in which they are due, which African Americans are due, in my view, and would be better for us societally. But in addition to that, post-slavery, they were also systemically, excluded from the economy in many ways. And so,
okay. And one other thing, those people actually experienced true racism, not the little soft racism we have today. Those people was getting spit on back then. But white man, you couldn't come into establishments back then. Now anything. Someone doesn't support Black Lives Matter. They're racist. Come on, man. That's so soft. Get strong.
At least the parts of the economy you want to be involved in. And so that's really what we're talking about. The NFL is a reflection of the country in generally. But more specifically, even when you factor that in, 3 African-American head coaches in a league that's 70% African-American? Yes, I think that the league should make this one of its priorities, Stephen A. Along.
Why should they? What did they get out of it? You go woke, you go broke. Again, if you're smart, start your own thing. Make the NFL bankrupt. It's gonna take time. It's not like it's gonna happen overnight. But what, let's say next 10 years, that's easy money.
With making money, obviously that's
at least. It'll take at least 10 years. Let me put it that way.
Is going to be their priority, and player health, because that could be something that could affect their business long term. I think this issue can also affect their business because it's beyond the pale at this point.
Well, you've got
one other thing though. If LeVar Ball can start a league, why can't they? There's something to think about.
You've got white owners who hire people who look like them and they're more comfortable with, and we know the code language that they usually use to justify it. That's number one. Number two, you're essentially saying that you don't trust black men to be a leader of men, particularly of men who look like them and share their cultural black background. You don't respect it. You don't trust it. All right. You more.
What are you talking about, Stephen A? What are you talking about?
Comfortable when you're playing that leadership role, which speaks to the kind of things that you just alluded to, Max Kellerman. And I don't bring up Zach Taylor to knock him. I wish him nothing but the best, along with others. But the reality is, when you look at the job that Eric Bieniemy has done, excluding this Super Bowl performance against Tampa Bay, the bottom line is that this is the 3rd year in a row that he's had a top-rated offense and he can't get a job. He can't get a head coaching job. And then you look at the fact that in Kansas City, even though he's designing the offense, Andy Reid is calling plays half the time. That's being held against him. But in the end,
okay, so I'm not into football like that. But if he does have the top-rated offense and he can't get a job, hey, shoot, I don't know. Gotta figure something out. I'll put it like that.
It comes down to is what I've said repeatedly on this show, and I'll close by saying this: when George Floyd had that knee on his,
how do we go? How do we go from football back to George Floyd? How? This is what I talk about with the slave mindset. People are so negative. It's like they're traumatized by it. Golly. Snap out of it.
For 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And people throughout this nation were lamenting what they saw.
Okay. No, I'm not saying he deserved this. Again, I'm not saying he deserved this. But he got himself in that situation. And the so-called black man is not getting into that situation. The smart black man is not getting into that situation. The average one isn't. It's only the low-level people. With all due respect, it's always the low-level people getting into that type of trouble.
What I said to folks when you saw blacks folks protesting in the streets throughout America was that when people talked about they had enough is enough.
Again, another ad. Look at that. Giving ESPN money.
They ain't just talking about brutality on the part of some police officers against unarmed black men. You were also talking from a figurative perspective.
He got himself in that situation. He's unarmed. Cool. He resisted arrest. He hid the money under his seat. Shout out to Mr. Fantastic for bringing this forward when it first happened.
In corporate America and other places where black folks continuously feel like we have that knee on our neck. We're marginalized.
No, you do. You do. Not we. You do. I don't have a knee on my neck. I'm not a slave, Stephen A. I don't have a knee on my neck and I don't feel it. Like I'm never getting into that situation, Stephen A. People like me, or even the average person who's making a living, minding his own business, and not getting caught up in stupid stuff, is not getting into that situation. Not a low-level people who like stealing, like robbing, even on their own people, shooting, killing their own people. Hey, that's on them. You get what you deserve.
Pigeon.
Again, I'm not saying George Floyd, I'm not necessarily saying George Floyd deserved a knee on his neck, but he got himself in that situation. What goes around comes around.
We're diminished in a lot of different ways and not held with the same regard, and the level of meritocracy that's supposed to be taking place doesn't exist for us. And this is just the latest example. And
Don't say us, Stephen A. For you.
the fact that black athletes who are elite and well paid don't have either the courage or the sensitivity to speak up about it, leaving it to folks like me and a few others, and you as well, Max, is a damn shame.
They ain't trying to lose their money. That's why they want to start their own league. They're not trying to lose their money. You get paid to talk about this, Stephen A. They don't. For all we know, they say something. The contract is cut. Bye bye. Unless they're the top athlete.
They make enough money, the dollars are guaranteed, they don't have to worry about it. Open your damn mouth. You speak about everything else, especially on Twitter and Facebook and all that other stuff. Where the hell are you? Open your damn mouths and speak up and show some damn courage.
Alright, well anyways, that Stephen A is something else, man. Show some courage. Why would they talk about something that they have no evidence on? Anyways, as you can see, Stephen A showcases the slave mentality. And Max Kellerman just keeps bringing up the slavery narrative to keep you in the chains. Anyways, that's about it on Anyways, that's about it on this one. Peace.